Welcome to International Trade Minute Quickfire Trade News, your premier source for swift and expert coverage of the latest shifts and turns in the field of international trade law. This podcast is brought to you by Reidel Law Firm, a source you can trust for informed legal perspectives. Today, we'll dive into critical updates without the need to unpack industry jargon, assuming your proficiency as accomplished trade law professionals. Stay tuned for a blend of high-caliber analysis and insights into the current landscape of trade regulations and legal rulings. Let's get started. In the field of international trade, diligence is our watchword, and the latest legislative development demands heightened attention. With the stroke of President Joe Biden's pen, the statute of limitations on sanctions violations was recently extended from 5 years to a full decade. You, as a seasoned trade law expert, understand the immediate implications, an extended timeline for sanctions investigations, now spanning a potentially costly and lengthy 10 years. Leading law firms are issuing advisories to their clients, stressing the urgency of reevaluating existing due diligence procedures. Paul Weiss attorneys are guiding entities involved in mergers and acquisitions to broaden their scope of due diligence checks, pushing for an expansive look-back period for sanctions representations and warranties. Wilkie Farr echoes this sentiment, imploring companies to ensure their sanctions policies robustly maintain records and documentation for this extended period. But beyond the immediate, this shift forecasts a landscape where acquirers, investors, and lenders will likely mandate extensive due diligence covering significantly prolonged timeframes. Transaction documents are expected to be reframed, recognizing the expanded statute of limitations stateside. For firms navigating U.S. economic sanctions, a paradigm shift in internal controls and diligence practices isn't just advisable, it's imperative. The legal community is bracing for an environment where the Office of Foreign Assets Control, also known as OFAC, along with the Department of Justice, may wield greater influence, given their new capacity to delve deeper into historical transactions. One cannot overstate the importance of this change. Doubled timeframes for potential enforcement action signify not only an expanded scope of liability, but also a likely escalation in penalties for non-compliance. This visionary legislation, set in motion on April 24th, represents an evolutionary leap in the sanctions structure. The dictum for trading practitioners is clear: anticipate, advise, and adapt. With this extension, the law not only solidifies past expectations, but also commands a forward-thinking approach to international trade compliance. As trade law experts, we're acutely aware that geopolitics can have powerful ripple effects, influencing not just nations and alliances, but also sectors such as franchise law. Franchise operators must tread carefully when considering expansion into Asia or any region beset by unpredictable geopolitical climate shifts. It's not just about understanding local markets anymore. It's about anticipating how international relations will shape economic landscapes. To our franchise clients, we say, your strategic approach must be multidimensional. Balance rigorous business planning with astute legal advice attuned to sensing tectonic policy shifts before they surface. China's practice of strategic stockpiling and its shifting international allegiances are a case in point and potential game changers for the rules and norms of trade regulations. This is where we, as legal advisors steeped in the nuances of international trade and franchise law, prove invaluable. We're not just consultants, we're navigators charting a course through tumultuous waters. Our role isn't simply to react to change, but to be a stabilizing force, equipping clients with proactive strategies to stay ahead of the legal curve. A resilient, agile, and compliant response to these dynamic trade winds is vital. In such a landscape, legal foresight becomes a tangible asset for our clients. Navigating the complexities of international trade means reassessing and adapting our strategies resiliently. Even amid the most robust challenges, we remain steadfast in delivering legal services that not only mitigate risks, but also harness the potential for growth. In essence, our fundamental goal persists: to offer sound legal counsel that aligns with our clients' pursuit of success. Despite the fluidity and complexities of the global trade environment, it is our unwavering commitment to guide franchises to not just survive, but to flourish. In an effort to tighten controls on the international arms trade, the U.S. Commerce Department has laid out a new suite of export restrictions. This move targets the diversion of firearms to groups deemed high risk, including criminals, terrorists, or cartels. These significant regulatory changes are shoring up barriers against the illicit spread of weapons beyond our borders. Central to the department's strategy is the institution of a presumption of denial policy for firearm export licenses. This will apply to export requests directed to 36 countries identified by the State Department, primarily located in regions of the Caribbean, Latin America, and Southeast Asia. These nations have been flagged for the substantial risk that exported firearms might be misappropriated or misused within their jurisdictions. With these restrictions, the Commerce Department is effectively revoking all existing approved export licenses for the listed countries 60 days after the publication of this interim final rule. This sweeping action will require companies currently holding licenses to navigate the bureaucracy of reapplication, a process undoubtedly set to be stringent and thorough. Furthermore, there's a plan to diminish the longevity of most licenses from a span of 4 years down to a mere single year. This window reduction enables the Bureau of Industry and Security, the executing arm of these changes, to stay nimble and responsive to shifts in the global security landscape. The regulatory body is also adding new categories under the export control classification numbers, encompassing semi-automatic rifles, pistols, shotguns, and their related parts. Controlled under the Crime Control 2 reason, this categorization is indicative of heightened scrutiny over arms exports. Additionally, proposed documentation requirements for license applications are becoming more rigorous. Exporters to non-A1 countries will now be tasked with submitting an import certificate or an equivalent official document, as well as purchase orders dated within 1 year of the license application. This aims to cement the paper trail from manufacturers to end users, bolstering transparency and accountability. Public comments on the interim final rule are being solicited until July 1st. This paints a picture of a department seeking engagement with stakeholders, even as it casts a much narrower net for firearms exports. These changes mark a critical pivot towards a more circumspect and controlled approach to arms trade, an approach that could reshape the arsenal landscape, ensuring U.S. manufactured firearms do not become tools of instability elsewhere in the world. In an unprecedented shakeup in the fashion industry, the Federal Trade Commission has made its mark by filing a lawsuit to block a high-profile deal, the proposed $8.5 billion acquisition of Capri Holdings by Tapestry, the parent company of Coach and Kate Spade. This dramatic intervention merges antitrust enforcement with luxury fashion, two realms that infrequently collide. The FTC's argument hinges on concerns that merging Tapestry's Coach and Kate Spade with Capri's Michael Kors would diminish direct competition between these dominant brands in the accessible luxury handbag segment. They argue that it would not only snuff out healthy market rivalry, but also give Tapestry an oversized slice of the market pie, potentially distorting prices and options available to consumers. This move by the FTC comes at a time when the country grapples with soaring inflation rates and the consequent affordability crisis biting the average American household. Gasoline, groceries, healthcare, and housing, the basics are straining wallets, which begs the question, why is the FTC focusing on high-end handbags that are arguably discretionary purchases? Despite the rising economic pressures, the Biden administration appears to prioritize market competition within the fashion industry. FTC officials have expressed concern that the consolidation of such powerful brands under one umbrella could not only stifle competition but also impact the labor market, potentially undercutting hourly wages and work conditions. Conversely, industry advocates and the companies involved have staunchly defended the deal, pointing out that the luxury handbag market is highly competitive, with multiple brands across price points vying for consumers' attention. And they aren't alone in their perspective. The transaction cleared regulatory hurdles in other jurisdictions, such as Europe and Japan. The stance taken by the FTC has ignited a debate over where the line should be drawn for antitrust intervention. Is it a well-measured attempt to keep the luxury market competitive? Or does it reflect a misalignment of priorities amid the broader economic challenges facing the nation? For Tapestry and Capri, the next steps involve a vigorous defense in court as they seek to convince the judiciary that this merger is indeed pro-competitive and beneficial to consumers. Meanwhile, for us, This unfolding legal battle serves as a stark reminder of the delicate balance regulators must strike in marshaling fair market practices without ignoring the broader economic context. That's a wrap for today's episode of International Trade Minute. Thank you for tuning in, and join us next week as we continue to bring you the latest news condensed into a concise newscast to keep you informed on the ever-evolving landscape of international trade law.